Do you want to entertain while
I will entertain. First of all, a big thank you to Simon and the team for bringing us, inviting us here. It's quite amazing, actually, over the last number of days to begin to hear the commonalities that are coming out in the work. And I often feel that, you know, we often work in isolation in large measure, and then to come together, again, this community of people who are sharing experience, craft, ability, and also the challenges that are inherent to what we're doing here, I think is fundamental to what the art form is all about. And I know from personal experience that we can share this, I guess, in terms of people perhaps putting us into a little bit of a niche, you know, the niche of screen dance. And I think that's part of what this discussion is all about as well. But we're ready, eh?
Yeah, here we are, ready to go.
Excellent. So we're from Montreal. That's an important thing to say, from Canada. And, oh yeah, just a little something I have to say. So I have to thank the Concordia University part-time faculty,
in fine arts, no.
professional development grant for bringing me here. So thank you to them.
No, it's Kappa. Yeah, so Philip and I do a bunch of things. We've been working together for, I think it's going on 21 years this year. And we make dance films. That's how we commonly refer to them back in Canada, or we do anyways. We also make documentaries, mostly focused on dance artists. And we've moved into installation work. Our most recent work that we'll show you, we're basically going to do a little voyage through our repertory and the different platforms that we've encountered and worked on over the course of our 20 years. And our installation basically is a blend of documentary and screen dance making in one unit.
Yes.
So look forward to sharing that with you.
We met.
Background?
Yeah, we met in 1986. 85? Anyway, somewhere around there. We met in an audition. So we were both dancing, and this was in a work of Charles Dennis, a New York choreographer. But it was in Montreal. We became fast friends, did the performance, stayed
Philip made me
friends.
some amazing chicken soup during a break.
We bonded over chicken soup,
Yeah,
yes.
we made it into the performance together, so.
And we kind of went our separate ways professionally, broadcasting and writing.
Yeah, I was in filmmaking. I went from studying contemporary dance initially to finishing my degree in film production, doing the two concurrently. Left school, was working as a documentary filmmaker and editor. And then Philip and I got back together with a project I was initiating at the Art Institute of Chicago.
And I'd been lecturing all over the world, talking about Canadian culture and Quebec culture, and I was in Seattle, and somebody had mentioned to me a program that was happening in Los Angeles, and it was at the University of California in Los Angeles, and essentially push came to shove, and we're both in a fellowship at UCLA in specifically what was called dance media, and it was produced, I guess, by the Center for Intercultural Performance, and that became kind of the backbone of our interest. We had been interested in cross-cultural issues, putting that into film and considering that in terms of dance, and this was kind of the thrust of what this particular institute was doing, not specifically the program of the fellowship, but we took advantage of that possibility, and we're going to show you our very first work. Well, it's not our first work, but the first work that we created within that fellowship. So this is called Echo and Sunhay, A Journey Beyond.
That's right, it was a 24-minute documentary featuring two artists that we met in Los Angeles, both professional touring artists that I think were also studying at the Center for Intercultural Performance.
One from Korea, one from
Right, so it's a 24-minute doc, and this is the first minute.
I'm trying to explore all the feelings, emotional, the quality, passion inside, what's going on inside, and trying to express what it is through the movement. That's my process right now. Not so much personal history or event, but more religious feeling, my personal religious feeling through the movement. That's my work at this point. And so hopefully can be, it's basically offering. The role as dancer, the role as shaman, I think it's similar. They're entertainer, they have to deal with the spirits.
So that was our interest that began in terms of documentary work, and it continued to fall through. We did a few more projects in Los Angeles, moving between Montreal and Los Angeles, but then went back to Montreal and created our own company, Mouvement Perpetuel. That was in 2001. And again, the idea of the company was to create work, both art film, documentary. We hadn't even considered ideas of installation at that point, but platforms were opening up for us. Obviously at that stage, 2001, we're talking about broadcast medium, so television broadcast. And in Canada, there were a lot of opportunities that were opening up. We talked about Bravo Fact yesterday. There was a parent organization or broadcaster called Bravo, and what we're going to show you is a documentary on an Aboriginal artist by the name of Byron Chief Moon from Alberta, the Alberta area. He lives also in Vancouver. This stemmed out of another series of short pieces that we had done, moving across the country and encountering emerging artists and varying emerging artists. So emergence in terms of youth, in terms of dancer becoming choreographer, someone emerging from a career but going back to their hometown, that kind of thing. We got to know Byron in a deeper way and realized there was an amazing possibility for a documentary. And so we approached Bravo.
Right, and this is where our experience, having worked in both broadcast journalism and documentary filming, really came into play, because we knew we could approach broadcasters, we knew how to pitch a project, we knew how to put proper budgets together, schedules and whatnot, and we were just, in some way, I guess, clever enough with Byron. We ended up working on 3 different projects with him. So we did an hour-long documentary. We'll see just the intro clip of that. We shot a short dance film with him on 16mm, so we were able to take some of that really beautiful footage and incorporate it into the documentary. And initially, the first piece we did with him when we first met him was the series on emerging artists. Mm-hmm. So that was really a wonderful, full experience. So we'll show a clip of that, and then we can say what that led to.
When I'm dancing, I try to get myself into this imaginary time. It's coming from this pulse that has inspired me all my life. It's coming from the soles of my feet, because that's my connection to Earth, the Mother. And that's where when we're dancing, we're within her pulse, and our story comes out through our gesture. I guess bringing back the stories just acknowledges where I come from, where my people have come from, and it's the landscape. We know that we are connected to Earth, and she's a woman.
So that opened up an incredible universe for us, and people responded so warmly around the world to this particular documentary, and so there was a circuit that we began to explore more deeply, whether because he's a two-spirited man, so the whole range of LGBT possibilities opened up widely, Aboriginal, First Nations festivals, so this was great.
Yeah, we're still working with a distributor in San Francisco, and we produced this, I don't know, 15 years ago, something like that, and we just received a royalty check last week. It's never a large amount, but it's just really wonderful to see that it's still being purchased by universities, it's still being screened at events, and it just covered so many different genres, which was lovely. You know, we won an award at the American Indian Festival, also in San Francisco. We did a slew of festivals, including dance film festivals or screen dance events as well.
This led, at the same time as we were doing this notion of platform, we talked about Bravo Fact yesterday, these capsule 5-minute pieces. So we were lucky enough to do six of these short pieces over a number of years, I'd say about a 10-year span. So we're just going to show you a little montage of some of those works.
It's a 30-second trailer of the films, the Bravo Facts that we chose to shoot on film as opposed to video. So we weren't really happy with video at the time.
Just to give you a little taste of some of that work.
And some of that lovely grain.
Yeah, exactly. And that notion of the saturation. Anyways, we can talk about film endlessly. But one of the things that was a benefit, I suppose, in some respects, this notion of collaboration has been such an important part of what we do, just in terms of our collaboration and the synchronicity of all of that, but also the people that we work with. So right from the start, I mean, our very first efforts, we were working with a man named Michael Weiss, who was a director of photography on a number of our projects. We kind of call it a repertory company of people. So we don't have a company, a real company, but it's people we go back to, editors, sound people, music, composers, etc. The other advantage was that I had been a dance critic, and so I got to know so many people in the community and abroad and whatever. But we chose early on to work with a number of emerging choreographers, and you saw some of them in that little montage. A woman named Dame Michelle actually was a student of mine, and she's since become a very big name internationally. But this is a piece that I saw in a Fringe festival. And this notion of adapting work from stage to screen, again, is part of what we do. And this is called The Greater the Weight. This was created in 2008?
Somewhere around there.
Somewhere around there. It's been touring the world for the last 11 years, constantly. So just gives you an idea of the scope of where this medium can go.
And we'll show you some examples, visual examples of how we collaborate with artists in the next work. But with Dana, it was particularly interesting to figure out basically a vocabulary to describe her dancing so that we could break it down with her so she would know which section of the dance we'd be working on. So we worked a lot with her in the studio, sort of with the cinematographer as well. At the time it was a different cinematographer, but another one of our colleagues. And it was really about how do we find keywords? How can we describe this, really interesting but perhaps unusual series of gestures or movements that you're doing? What is the intention with it? And how can we encapsulate that in a short phrase? So I think we really seemed to develop it with Dana, and then subsequently we kept this method going with other choreographers and dancers we worked with. So it became a really great base for the whole crew to get in on. And then we would evolve it into storyboards and shot lists. But we'll show you the clip of Dana, and then we'll move on to Crystal's work and we'll show the examples of that. It's an excerpt again. previous grab effects on film. This was when HD was coming into its own. It was full 1920 by 1080, but we just found it like really too crisp, really too sharp. So we chose to work in the studio and completely flood it with smoke, and then fan it around, and just to get that grainy quality back that we love so much. And we like the way that it captured, really emphasized the lighting and all the textures.
So, in terms of trajectory, at this point, our name is kind of establishing itself just in the field. And the National Film Board of Canada, I made mention of Marlene Millar yesterday, so a major filmmaker, originally from Scotland, who came to Canada. But the National Film Board of Canada has been a major proponent of Canadian film over decades. And we were approached to create a dance film. And I had already had a connection with Crystal Pite. Crystal Pite might be a name that some of you know. She's world-renowned at this point, creates a lot of work here in the UK. And so we had an idea that maybe it would be great to work with Crystal. Crystal was interested at that time. Oh, it would be great to work, perhaps test out this notion of film, because she had been creating stage work. She wanted to reach a whole wider audience. What ended up happening, we had thought about translating one of her stage works, Lost Action, onto the screen, and we were originally thinking live action and animation. We wanted to push ourselves.
And using animation to create imaginary worlds that her work could be situated within. She had a really strong stage design that she was working with, and we didn't want to emulate that, but along with her we were talking about creating sort of new worlds, because her work is constantly shifting, especially this one, Lost Action Trace. It has references to World War I, and it comes right up to present day, so we were trying to figure ways of working with that. Because this was a fully produced National Film Board production, they did impose certain restraints on us. We got to work with whoever we wanted, but they really were at a point in time where they were exploring sort of new ways of working, and they really wanted us to work in 3D. It wasn't something that we were initially enamored with, but we decided to go along with it, and it was a proof of concept film that we ended up creating. But what it allowed us to do was really to do a lot of research into what had been created, what we were interested in. We worked with an incredible group of animators. For them it was a first as well, like creating these universes. It ended up just being one, given that it was a 2-minute film in the end. But
we had everything at our disposal, archival material. We were working with 7.1 sound, surround sound, which was, at that point, really cutting edge.
Like 6K or something, because they knew they were going to have to be doing all this compositing and working with the 3D technology, so we had like this wildly up-resed these cameras to work with.
So we have just a few minutes left.
Okay, so this is a quick look at some of the equipment we were working with.
Wow!
Again, different from what we were used to. Right?
This is our cinematographer. He should be waving. I went to school with him. He's worked with us ever since. There's me and Philip. And
looking a little different.
Short dark hair.
There's Crystal.
So we were able to use a playback monitor with simple 2-color 3D glasses for playback, so we could test, especially the, okay, we'll show you in the looking groovy. Oh, it's not going further, we're stuck on that. Hang on. I'm going to get to the boards.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's really fun just to show
So
you.
we were given the occasion to have a real storyboard artist work with us, as opposed to us doing cartoons, little stick figures. And so, again, we worked through the choreography. Now, you have to keep in mind, Lost Action as a stage piece was 70 minutes. Crystal has a brilliant mind, if any of you have seen any of her work. She's got a very, very sharp, inquisitive mind, and she essentially, because we were working with this proof of concept, she narrowed down a section combining different aspects of the choreography to a 2-minute, a minute and a bit section.
Wow. She took the whole evening work and distilled it down into those 2 minutes.
These are the
some of the boards. And what was really essential working in 3D was establishing the screen plane. So, actually, I'm just going to go over here. So the dotted line that you see represents the screen. Oh, thank you. I never think of these things. So the dotted line going across this way represents the screen plane. So if you're in a theater, it would be where the screen is. And then we would calculate the distance between the camera, or actually basically between the screen plane and the performers. So at that point, somebody would run out with a tape measure and do all these crazy calculations on the camera. To be able to create that. We could make some adjustments in post-production, but not many. So it allowed us to dictate when the dancers would be seen in intense depth, and if they crossed the dotted line, we'll see on some of the subsequent images, it would mean that they would be coming, out of the screen in that 3D way towards us.
Cool.
So you get that real sense
Right.
of the challenges that we were all having and the learning curve
Yeah.
for everybody, because that was huge. None of us had worked in this
Exactly.
fashion before.
So here you see the dotted line is behind the 4 dots that represent the medium shot of these 4 dancers here.
Yeah.
And then I'd created a shot list with
Yeah,
all the
okay.
different lenses we'd be using, the camera movement.
Sorry,
It was a
going through
union
this fast.
shoot. It was a union shoot, so we just had one day, we couldn't go a minute over, so it had to be wildly well organized.
Now we have literally probably about a minute left, so we'll just briefly, that's our shot list, just so you get an idea. You all kind of know what a shot list is, but let's go to our final project.
Yes, exactly.
So-
And you might have noticed all of the little titles we gave to each of the sequences: Mini Walking Series, First Loop, Iwo Jima.
And that's a Crystal thing too. We learned all this stuff from her. It was great. Yeah, we've got 2 things.
Oh, we're just quickly talking
Very,
about...
very quickly. I know that time is fleeting. So,
For all day.
we, again, opportunities, platforms opened up. So in Quebec, there was a television network, the Télé-Québec, it's the national television network. They put up a platform, an online platform, and there was an opportunity to create short films for it. So we put forward a proposal, again, working in a form we had never worked in, urban dance, street dance. And so we brought in a consultant who worked as an artistic advisor with us, and we created this series called Cru, 3 parts, working with 3 different artists. And again, we're going to show you just a tiny clip of Monster Pop, Hadiyah South, and you'll get a sense of what that kind of thing was. Hugely popular, these online capsules.
I'm Etienne Lou and welcome to Cru. Bienvenue à Cru! Bienvenue à Cru, man! Parle-moi de ton histoire d'amour avec le popping.
C'est la première fois que j'ai vu des glides, des slides, la première fois que j'ai vu des belles waves, que j'ai vu quelqu'un bouger comme un robot, des trucs de malade, tu sais. J'étais comme, ok, ouais, c'est vraiment cool. J'ai pas eu la piqûre par l'aspect dansant, c'était l'illusion. C'est how can you be not human? Look like a cartoon, an animation, look like it's unreal. Mais non, attends, les yeux ils choquent, là, attends. Do that again, how did you do this? You know, c'est comme c'est ça qui m'a touché directement. Des fois, je me perds là-dedans, je suis comme, ok, c'est assez, je retourne dans comme quelque chose qui est plus popping, quelque chose qui est plus, behavior, strut bass, whatever. Mais ma nature, c'est de retomber là-dedans.
And that's the way we speak in Quebec. It's called franglais. A little bit of English, a little bit of French. We're gonna, just to tie the whole thing up, again, Joe brought us into this world of installation, and this is where we're working as well. It's an opening for us in a brilliant kind of way. This is a project called 1001 Lights. It's based on the Sabbath candlelighting ritual. And again, we've created this for museums, gallery spaces, and like Joe was talking about, we can go into this in more detail perhaps when we're all together. But the idea of when we first created it was like, oh, we've got to have the big screen, and we've got to have it on 3 sides. 3 screens,
And we
yeah.
had like this crazy spec sheet. And it wasn't getting picked up anywhere, because we wanted it really big, monumental, 3 sides, dark room, totally immersive.
And what we've learned is installations are to be adapted for different spaces, different possibilities. So we'll just show you very quickly.
Yeah, we can talk while it's up. So this is just a version that shows the 3 screens, so we have the fine line separating the 3. As Philip said, we just started being really flexible with it and adapting it to all kinds of spaces, which has been wonderful. And one of the sort of more unusual manifestations it's taken that we're really quite pleased with was a storefront window, actually a museum, and it's based on a really busy street in our neighborhood. And we realized people would only see it when they're passing by. You know, it was in the winter. They might stop and have a look, but I just like the fact that they'd be picking up on different moments of it throughout the course of their day as they were walking by.
And of course, as Joe was talking about as well, this notion of perception, time, how we immerse ourselves in the visual image, and what distracts us, what interests us, how we keep our focus, lose our focus, this becomes really interesting material, I think. And I've done a lot of research in terms of that. So this is an installation which, again, installations are hard to book into places because it's not necessarily obvious, particularly dance related, and this is hand movement, which again is quite fascinating unto itself, again based in a specific kind of ritual. And again, working with this idea of documentary, which you just saw, and more artistic kinds of filming becomes fascinating in terms of the material, the actual material.
Right, yeah, so Amy, who was the choreographer that we brought on board, worked with 5 artists, not all dancers. One was a painter, the rest do work in dance, one's a yoga instructor, and they basically did a workshop working with embodying the experience of the candle lighting ritual. And the rest of the participants were women, primarily women, a few men, including Philip, who we filmed just, you know, driving around Montreal, going from household to household, filming people doing their practice.
So I think we'll leave it there. We had other images of where it's been and the different manifestations, but you can imagine that, and we can show you privately if you like. But thank you.
Thank you so much, guys. What we're going to do, we're going to have a question and answer now. So can I ask all the artists to join me here? Guys, feel free to talk amongst yourselves while we set up this situation. I'm going to grab some water. Teamwork.